Alright, everybody, we should be live now for our weekly show. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and you're on a live stream for people who probably aren't going to be watching the Super Bowl, at least not as intently as other people. I am, of course, Josh Placer from Game Wisdom, and my co-host is indie game developer Shark. How are you doing?
Oh,
and we lost you there. Uh-oh. Oh, as soon as he said he got knocked off. Wow, that is that's like a murder mystery timing right there. The second he said he got kicked off. Uh-oh. Let's see, can I invite him back? Let's try this again. Will it work?
Oh.
Yeah, you got kicked off there.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, the second you said it kicked you off.
Uh-oh.
We thought like a murder mystery happened there.
Yeah, apparently.
Alright, let's try this again, and hopefully you'll be able to stay on. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We just started finally, with the Twitter post, #soon finally happened, and we're posting some amazing stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to follow us, it's at Nexus Games INC1. And, I've had some amazing responses to it so far.
And congratulations on that. Now the real Dark Souls begins, I guess.
Yeah.
Sharks only have to now brave the waters of Twitter.
Mm-hmm. I'm used to swimming. I just haven't swum in those waters.
Mm-hmm. But great to hear things are moving forward for you. Things are getting crazy around here as always. I'm hearing back from a lot of libraries, and like this past week I heard back from 8 different libraries who may be interested in me. So it's like that again, it's like a feast or famine, I guess, around here.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to move forward with getting a Safely Extreme logo up, and perhaps one for the Perceptive Podcast as well. I have an artist drawing up some mock-ups right now, and we did our live presentation on roguelike design this past week. That'll go up in record form sometime this week coming up. And I also have to record a top 10 list because, nobody's done that before on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, and once you need to record at least 9 top 10 lists, so you can do a 10th one and do the top 10 list of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And for the final entry on that list, have it be this top 10 list.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody will get tired of that, right?
Nobody at all.
But other than that, we got more subscribers to the channel. And it was, of course, my birthday. I was, as my family has always said, I was like an hour away from being a groundhog. I was born around 11 o'clock on February 1st. And it was during one of the worst winter storms I think the state had way back in the 80s. But
yeah, I mean, if you just, shifted your birthday by a little bit, you'd only be, 6, 7 years old now?
Mm-hmm, yep. Oh yeah, a few more days if I was born on a leap year. That would have been really confusing.
Yep. If you were born on a leap year, you'd be what? How old would you be now? Like 7?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's what my mom has said too, because they were going out to eat, and I interrupted their dinner, and it was during the worst storm. So my part was just the cause of so many calamities that day. But we got some very interesting topics we're going to be discussing later on in the show. But to begin with, I guess, anything news related. The only thing that I saw that was kind of both a ominous sign and kind of a chuckle is what's going on with Stadia.
Oh, you haven't heard about the Blizzard thing then? Their newest controversy.
Possibly, but I'll let you explain that one.
If I remember right, it's on. It's Warcraft 3 Reforged, to where they were supposed to be really updating the game, bringing, they hyped it up. They made this really, good looking cutscene and all this other stuff, and they promised the world and everything, and then they delivered not only pretty much what they already had, but they did it worse. They downgraded the game instead of upgrading it. And people are pissed. And I was like, I'm sitting here looking at this, knowing all of Blizzard's past controversies over the last few weeks. Like, were you, or last few months, brother? And I'm like, were you expecting any less? Were you expecting better?
So they're going to announce Diablo 5 to atone for this, right?
Probably.
Man, that's going to be... What will come first, Diablo 4 or Diablo 5? Or Diablo Mobile. Or maybe they'll announce Diablo Mobile 2.
Yeah. And ask us if we don't we have phones?
Uh-huh. Now, the one thing that I heard that was like one of those WoW statements, and not WoW as in World of Warcraft, but WoW as in they had some, I guess, chutzpah to say this, was that in the terms of service, they reserve the right that any custom maps made in Warcraft 3 are the properties of Activision Blizzard and not the person who created them. So what that means is that if you come up with a very great idea for a new game mode or something else, you are not allowed to take that further. It becomes a property of Blizzard. And for those of you who don't remember, Warcraft 3 brought us some very interesting things, such as little genres like tower defense and Dota.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't blame them for that one, despite me wanting to, because, like, it's kind of a standard thing in the industry. And there's good reason behind it. But, I mean, as a developer, you don't want to abuse that. And, the number one thing Blizzard is going to do is abuse it. So,
yeah. And like I just said, like, so much came from the Warcraft 3 modding scene. And I think, again, like as you were saying, like, this is Blizzard we're talking about. Like, Blizzard and Nintendo have always, and even we could say Valve as well, have always occupied, like, a higher echelon compared to the other studios out there. And for them to kind of, like, stab their fan base in the back like this, well, it's probably normal these days, but it's a very big shock, I think.
I think it should be fairly standard, because issues tend to arise when it's not. I mean, I want to do that on one of my games, that Project Mech that I want to do. I want to put out, that kind of thing, but, I don't want to necessarily act on it, because I want it there as a safety net, because, I intend on, bringing some of this, bringing stuff of the fans make into the vanilla copy of the game. And what I want to do is offer them payment and everything for their stuff, and if worse comes to worse, I got the safety net I can fall back on.
And I think that is a very important distinction. And I think this could be a topic for the backlog as well. Kind of developer and fan interaction when it comes to fan-made content or fan-made support. Because we've seen games where the modders and the fan base have arguably fixed or improved a game better than the original developers. And then you run into a very sticky situation again as to what happens with that content. And again, we can even extend that further into talking about, custom game mods, partial conversion mods for games, or even full conversion mods for games. Because for those of you who don't remember, like growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, there were a multitude of popular mods for games that really, in a way, stood either stand by side or side by side or above the original game. I remember They Hunger for Half-Life, and again, there were so many Half-Life mods. Team Fortress was a mod at one point, and you have to have like the environment that the fans want to make stuff for your game, because this is an easy way to get free notoriety for your title. But as you said, Shark, you do need protections in place, because you don't want somebody to just take all your assets and make another game out of it.
Exactly. And you need it for protection, but if you don't want to burn your modding community, because that's burning your game, you know. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that. You would want to, in this kind of game, embrace your mods, you know, embrace your modders and whatnot. Like for Oxygen Not Included, I would like them to take several of the mods for Oxygen Not Included, and you know, pay the modder something, you know, and incorporate those into the vanilla game, like the little things that allow them to build a 2 block wide bridge instead of a 1 for a pipe, you know, because it's like, why isn't that vanilla?
Yeah.
You know,
Grim Dawn, for instance, integrated several mod supports into their latest, in the previous like major update for it. The whole search items by their tag or search stores for popular keywords, that was a mod that was introduced in the game that they incorporate into the base game.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I want to do. And this, you know, this kind of contract or whatever is, you know, kind of intended as a failsafe, you know, that needs to kind of be in there. And yeah, it doesn't look good, and it can definitely be abused. But, you know, if you abuse your consumer base, if you abuse your modders, guess what's going to happen?
They're going to leave, and then you're going to be out a whole lot of content and a whole lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, today, like, in today's market, modding and, like, custom or fan-made content, I think, is at a rise. You know, thanks to Steam Workshop. And again, just the fact that it's a lot easier to create stuff with the tools these days than it was, you know, 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And again, like, if you remember, I did the podcast with John. I think his name was Lumpkins. He was the one who he was the head designer on the Long War mod for XCOM and XCOM 2. And when they made that mod for the original XCOM Enemy Unknown, there was no SDK. They had to create their own SDK to then make the mod that they wanted for it.
Mm. And that's another thing. You know, we're going on the modding topic, but if you're going to make a game around modding, you know, with the modding community in mind, you definitely want to make it as easy as possible for your people to mod it. Your you know, 7 Days to Die intends on being for modders and whatnot, but because they're in early access and whatnot, they're waiting on that full mod support until the end. It's still possible to put mods in there. There's plenty of mods out there, but it's not easy to put mods in there right now. It's not the hardest, from my understanding, but they haven't, you know, developed the tools and whatnot to make it easy, because they would have to redevelop those each time they release the game, and they're like, yeah, we're saving that for the end.
Oh, yeah. But again, if you are going to focus on that kind of mod support, then you need to have all that stuff in place. Problem mod-friendly games. Yep, and again, like, it's that catch-22, because there are some games that developers just basically say, we're going to give you the basics, and then we're just going to rely on the fans to do all the work for us. And then those titles usually end up failing because there's not enough there to kind of get people interested in the game, and they don't become interested in the game, then they're not going to make stuff for it.
Or in the case of like Bethesda and a few other companies, they release a buggy game out there and they just let the fans fix it.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing you don't do. And I said this in an article that I wrote. The fan base should never be responsible for fixing your game.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's enough. I think this could easily be a topic for a future thing if you want to add it to the list there.
Yeah, I'll add it to the list.
So, getting back to Warcraft, like I've heard people say, like everything in the Reforged version is the exact opposite of the work that went to like the Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, with updating the graphics, rebalancing the game, adding in more campaigns, and I really do want to jump back into that, much I think to Thorn's excitement if I want to play more of that on stream. And could this be like its own topic about remaking or remastering games?
Oh, absolutely.
There we go. We just added 2 to the list in the span of 4 minutes. We're really on the ball today, aren't we?
Yeah, and we added the 2 topics that we're going to cover today to the list today, too.
Yeah. But, and for my little bit of news, Google Stadia has once again been in the news for the very wrong reasons. And let me pull up the piece here really fast. So if you remember, it's been, like a little over a month, maybe a month and a half, and Google Stadia was going to be the next-gen streaming platform for games. Everybody was going to love it. Major YouTubers did videos, worshipping Google Stadia, and this was going to be the best way for developers to get their games in the hands of people, sunshine, lollipops, and all that other great stuff. And as of earlier this week, it's been reported that it's been 40 days since Google has released any updates about what's coming to Stadia at all. And when Google was pressed about this, their response was it should be up to the publishers of games to make announcements about Google Stadia. And then you kind of heard like that record flip, or like the crickets. It got deadly silent there.
Yeah, because it's the it's the developer's job to make sure that their platform is working.
Of course it is. And pretty much, I think, to not much of a surprise to like people like us, like is not sounding all that good for Stadia.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't sounding good from the very beginning, honestly, because I heard rumors, and this is all unverified information, but I heard rumors from many developers that many different companies were contacting the developers and asking them to put a game up there, and not for sale but for free, and then they'll collect basically little pennies here and there based on how much it's played, kind of thing. And developers were not happy about that at all, because they were like, this cannot support us. I mean, we're barely supporting ourselves on the full price kind of thing. We can't do this in the kind of subscription of games model. And right around this time is when Google Stadia announced, and it was like, ooh, that's it's looking like that's going to be the thing, and then they're not going to have any games. And I'm pretty sure that was going to be the thing. They didn't have any games, and then they swapped off of that, and a few people decided to put their games on there only because they swapped off of that. That's my guess, But by that point, I'm pretty sure they had burnt a lot of bridges at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Stadia didn't really get any games, and then it released with all of its problems and whatnot. And these aren't just simple problems; these are like core problems.
Mm-hmm. And again, like with something like creating a new platform, I think this is once again that proof that this is not something you just walk into without any kind of planning. Because we've seen other companies attempt this in the past, especially in the 90s. The Atari Jaguar, the 3DO, and there are several other ones as well.
Like the Ouya.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Google's done it twice.
Yeah.
They walked in blind twice.
Yeah. And the big thing is that you can't just be thinking about what we're doing a month. You should be thinking at least a year to 2 years out at minimum if you're trying to build a new platform.
I think you should probably be looking farther out than that.
Yeah. And again, like this, a lot of developers are saying that most likely, if this fails, Google will just sweep it under the rug and leave all the developers out to dry there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure they will, because they've done that in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so who knows? We may be reporting next month, what's going to happen to Google Stadia. Where did it go?
I doubt it'll be next month. It'll probably be. They'll probably let it. They're trying to milk it with their advertising campaign, and they're obviously making money, but they're not making much, kind of thing. And they're mainly making money because of their lies in their marketing campaign and whatnot, saying they have all this stuff that they don't have still. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure about the time we stop seeing ads is when they're going to cut the cord, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then they'll let it coast until it's not selling well enough to even have up at all, and then they'll throw it in the trash. But after they cut the cord, it's dead at that point. It's just waiting for it to run out of oxygen, completely out of steam, out of all of its momentum, before they just completely chunk it in the trash.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any ads for Google Stadia in I think a few weeks, and I was getting them almost like every other one on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the cord might have already been cut.
Mm-hmm. So I think with that, let's get to our first major topic, because we have two, I think, really good ones this week. So the first one we're going to be discussing, this is one that Shark brought up, and this is about how to get maximum value out of your game ideas or your workload. And it's really good because it will also segue into my topic later on in this piece. But since Shark, you're the one who brought this up, I'll let you start us off.
All right. So what we're talking about here is two main things. We're talking about the workload of what a system or part of your design is going to take. Whether it's a multiplayer system or rock paper scissors mini game, or being able to realistically animate brushing your teeth in a video game. Whatever system it is, kind of thing, and how much work it takes to put into it to get it to work. And then the other side of that is how much value the players gets out of it. How much enjoyment do they get out of that? I mean, the enjoyment of seeing you brush your teeth in game, probably not very high. The workload on that, probably pretty high. When we're rock paper scissors and mini game, probably pretty low on the workload and probably pretty high on the enjoyment. I forget the other example I put out there, but the gamers do not care how much work you put into the game. They don't care if you spent 6 months making the game or 60 years making the game.
Yep.
They only care about what they're playing, and what kind of value it gives them. I mean, Red Dead Redemption is definitely part of that, because they put so much workload into a lot of stuff that has very, very little value, kind of thing. It's nice polishing touches and everything, but it's a lot of work for very little payout, kind of thing.
And we could also say something about the work we see in like with something like Rockstar. They've always been one for, we're going to put as much production value into our game as we can, as they want to be the AAA blockbuster game. But as we've said before, if you're an independent developer, you are never going to be able to compete directly with a AAA studio. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, but you don't have to necessarily put all the work in to get all the polish. I mean, there are plenty of ways to polish your game that are in low low workloads. I mean, like with our current game, Project Triad, I mean, we're applying a glow effect to a lot of different things because, neons is a very, integral part of cyberpunk kind of thing. And like, we have a lot of glowing effects in a lot of places. Well, we will when it's done, but it's not done yet. But, point is that that's going to add polish to so many different areas, and it's so minimum kind of thing. And some animations here and there, all kinds of little different things, and you can add so much polish, so much value to your game with a very little workload. That said, is you can your core systems are probably not going to be low workload, and you have to you can't just only do the things that are going to have high payouts kind of thing. But you do want to try to definitely go towards the high value and the low workload as much as you can. It's you definitely do not want to go one-sided towards that, because then you'll have a game that feels incomplete. You still want a complete game, but you want to balance it as much as you can in that workload to keep your minimum workload and maximum value.
Yeah. And as you said, as an independent developer, we're not asking any indie devs to be making photorealistic, walking animation cycles for their game. But there are ways for you to improve the value of your game. If you remember, I did that video about the presenting gameplay to somebody, and how you can do little or big things to make your game more appealing. Having some kind of structure to your campaign, not just having a bunch of still images, that are all like copy and pasted all over the place. And as we've said before, this kind of stuff matters these days. Because, like you said, fans don't care that it took you 8 months to just have a still image of a guy, eating a piece of food as a piece of art in your game. All they're going to see is what's in front of them. And if what's in front of them, they don't like it, then they're going to go away.
Yeah. I think one of the key things that we haven't talked about in this adding value and everything for very minimum is the UI art. Because if you have a good aesthetic in the UI art, that's going to apply throughout the entire game.
Yep.
Because every place you go, there's going to be UI art, and it's going to add to every part of the game. Of course, UI art isn't the easiest kind of thing, and it takes, it's not, not the lightest load and everything, but it will add value all over the game. And it's probably like maybe a medium load kind of thing rather than a high or a low load, but it's one that will, value will appear everywhere throughout your game pretty much.
Yeah. And it is something that a lot of first-time developers tend to pass on. I mean, you were there when we did a lot of our Indie Spotlight streams, and we play like games from like first-time developers, and just how little production value there is in those games. And you can't rely on, somebody like me who's going to overlook that stuff and get the gameplay loop, because people are going to take notice of this.
Yep. And the UI, like I'm finding out that I'm pretty good at creating UI kind of thing. UI requires kind of a technical mindset, it seems, when you're designing it, and that happens to be what I have technically. So, I ended up finding out that I'm, pretty decent at UI design and everything. And you need somebody with that kind of technical mind to really take full advantage of designing a UI. But that doesn't mean you can't do organic UIs, because I have seen some UIs. I think Stardew Valley did a UI where it's very organic and looked like boards and everything. So it doesn't even have to be technical. But I think most UIs go towards the technical side. But I definitely couldn't do a UI like in Stardew Valley. That's for sure.
Yep. And again, you have to understand where you need to prioritize the work in your game. Because, we've used this example before. Some developers think, oh, I'll just add 50 more levels to my platformer, and it'll be 50 times a better game. Not touch anything in terms of UI or aesthetics. We're just going to throw more levels into it.
Yeah, and the issue is normally it's not 50 times better, but it's 50 times worse. Because, there's a certain point where players get to, and it's like, these levels are all the same. I don't want any more. This game is generic. I don't care anymore. Screw this game, kind of thing. Yep. I mean, I think we ran into a situation with that with you not too long ago.
A whole lot of them, too. And again, as a developer, you need to understand what aspects of your game really pop and what ones people are going to resonate with. Like, for instance, if we're talking about... I just got very eerie outside with the rain. If you're talking about a strategy game or a tactical game where you build custom-made units, typically people are going to really care about the personalization aspects of those games. If you're going to let me name a character, why can't I do clothing or, change their armor and things like that? So that would be an area that the fan base may want to see you put more work into, as opposed to maybe just having fancier shadows and lighting on the background environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we had a game like that, our last game, and we did not do anything but let them name it. And that was definitely a mistake on our part.
And I think this also I think this topic also segues into when we talked about playtesting and user feedback. That if everyone you're showing your game to says they really like X, then you may want to consider how you can improve X or do more with it. Because again, if your fans are saying this, they may know what they like in terms of your game.
Yep. But you can't just take them 100%. You have to go in as your designer, have your designer go in and figure out exactly what they mean, because they may be pointing to say a pain point, and it's not the actual thing that's causing the pain.
Yep. But the finding the symptom, not the disease itself.
Yeah. As a game designer, you have to be basically a doctor in many ways, because you have to go in there and diagnose people. Like somebody comes in and tells you their stomach hurts. It could be many things. Could be that they need to go to the bathroom. Could be that they've ruptured something in their ruptured a kidney. Could be that that any number of things. Could just be that they got food poisoning. It could be any number of things, from serious to minor. But as a game designer, it's your job to go in there and diagnose, and figure out exactly what the problem is based off of what your fans and whatnot are telling you.
Yeah. And it's also important, again, to understand just what you can and can't do. Because one of your fans may say, hey, can you just completely update your entire graphics engine? We don't want this game to be a 2D style game. Make it fully 3D Unreal Engine graphics. You can do that in 6 months, right?
Yeah. That sounds like a great idea.
I remember that example from Dusk, when the developers said that people are complaining, why are you using 90s pixel graphics? Just make it look like Doom.
Some consumers these days just have not a clue as of what goes into development. And then it turns out that a lot of these people that have not a clue about game development end up wanting to get into game development
or make YouTube videos about it.
Yeah,
and
which is ironic.
Yeah. And it's important, again, as a developer to know what is the actual load that you're going to be taking on when you're adding in stuff. And again, like, this extends into multiple aspects of game development, even Kickstarter as well. That you may think to yourself, sure, we could have a stretch goal of fully online multiplayer. We can do that in what? A weekend, right, Shark?
You can do it in an hour if you skip lunch.
Yeah. And if we just throw more money at it, we'll get it done in even faster time. Every extra $1,000 we add to the stretch goal will take an hour off of the development of it.
Well, if you pay a second person to skip lunch, you can have it done in like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, and then you just hit the make multiplayer work button on Unity, and then you're done.
Exactly.
That's all there is to game development, people.
Yep, you've unraveled all the secrets.
There we go. Mm-hmm. And yet, to reuse point there, as a creator, you get to decide, but you also need to understand what you're actually capable of. And I remember the chat I had with one of the developers on Battle Brothers, and I brought this up in the past, that what they did was basically itemize everything on a list as to what we can do, what is super high priority, like, if we don't do this, the game is broken. What we would like to do, and what we would like to do, but it may be too big to do at this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the starting, that's kind of like part of the game design document designing right there. Because they're going through all these features and whatnot, and this is what they want, this is what they want, and this is what they, and then they go and cut stuff that is out of scope and whatnot in order to bring down the game into scope without hurting the game negatively. Mm-hmm. I mean, no game will ever be perfect. No game will ever have all the systems it wants in there, unless it gets maybe 500 sequels, but, you can't count on that in the first game. Mm-hmm. But you can't base your game on perfection. Mm-hmm. if you're basing your game on perfection, you've already failed. You've already failed because you will never release that game, and if you don't quit that game, you'll never release a game. Period.
Yeah.
But you have to manage your scope, and you've got to know what you can do, what you can't do, and what you can learn how to do, and what you can pay people to do for you, and what your teammates can do and can't do, and what they can learn to do. And you have to get all these things, and then you have to, evaluate it within a time period, because you don't want to be, you don't want to have so much work that you're working on this thing for 30 years, and then by the time you release it, the graphics are 30 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you don't want that. You want to again, load versus value in the game. You want to figure out how much of a load a thing is, how much time it's going to take based off of all the work that it's going to take to make it, between all the members of your team. And then you're going to have to take about the value that it's going to add to the game and how much it's going to make the gamers enjoy the game.
Yeah.
And you've got to make it's a balancing act, and you've got to get the scope, the load down low enough that the scope is low enough that you can actually finish the game. Yeah. And you've got to get the value high enough that the game you publish is good enough and fun enough for the players that they will really enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. And to that point about knowing what you're trying to do there, like, this is one of the reasons why we say you have to have a good grasp as to what is priority one for gamers out there. And specifically, of course, for your fan base. Like, to give you an example, if you remember The Legend of Bumbo that came out about, I think it was like a month, maybe 2 months ago. When that game came out, it had no sound options whatsoever. Like, you couldn't raise or lower the sound. And, like, that to me is just, like, a complete misstep by Edmund. And I remember him being asked why they did that. And he said, like, if we want to add that in, we would have to delay the game, and we didn't want to do that. But I think you may agree with me on this one, Shark, that if the basic elements of your game aren't done, you should never release that game, or especially say it's 1.0 of a title.
Yeah. I mean, at best, you do early access and just have a short-term early access. You know, have like 6 months or so of early access or whatever you need. Don't release it into 1.0 with core things missing. And you could argue that options being used and stuff like that is not core, but it's core to the user experience, which is core to your game. Because if the user experience isn't good, then the people aren't going to enjoy your game.
It would be like releasing or making a car that doesn't allow you to open or close the windows, and you're going to tell people that that's going to come in the next 3 months. We'll send that out as an update to your car.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like, sound options are not, priority one. But
or that the driver's side door doesn't open and you have to jump over the passenger seat to get in.
Or you have to do, the Dukes of Hazzard, like jump through the window, like jump through an open window to get in the car.
Yeah, there you go. Or that the front seats are not in the car and you have to sit in the back seat and lean forward and stretch out your feet to drive from the back seat.
Yeah. But at the end of it, there are elements, and we're seeing, I think, more people talk about this, that there's kind of like, I think, like a bare minimum of features and playability that every game should have. And that could even be its own topic as well. We're really, we're working hard today, aren't we?
Yeah.
And when you're trying to think about what elements to add to a game, again, like as you said earlier, Shark, the struggle for what you can do versus what you can't do is very real. Because as a developer, you obviously want to put everything you have into this game, and we've seen developers push into that. Stardew Valley, Cuphead, and there's probably several big examples of that as well. But at the end of the day, you have to think about, if I do this feature, is this going to take me a very long time to do? And more importantly, can I recoup that cost? Because this is something that Shark was saying earlier, that if you have an idea for your game, and let's say it turns a 2-year development cycle into 5 years, it's going to become exponentially more difficult to earn a profit off of that game.
Yeah, almost about 2.5 times as much, because it's going to cost 2.5 times more to make, which means that you're going to have make 2.5 times more money to break even.
Yeah.
I mean, if the game makes 10 times what it costs to make it, then hey, that paid off, kind of thing. You did. You did break even 5 times over, kind of thing. But most games do not meet that requirement. Most games don't even break even. I think it's only like something like 2% of games out there. We're talking about commercial games, not fan games
or hobbyist stuff.
Hobbyist stuff. We're not talking about any of those. We're talking about actual company games. Like Stardew Valley and a lot of the non-low quality stuff on Steam is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Ignore the low quality stuff on Steam, and that's the games we're talking about. Only a small percentage of them even break even. And if you're doubling what it takes to break even, then you're making it basically impossible for you to break even.
And like when we start talking about games that have like 5-10 year development cycles, that chance is even cut lower than that for them to break even on.
Yeah, because any game, I found that pretty much any game that goes past the 3-year mark in development cycle is not necessarily doomed to fail, but the odds of failure is way, way higher, like 100, 200,000 times higher to fail if you pass that 3-year mark.
But I think it's also important to clarify, we are talking about on the indie side of things. We are not bringing AA and AAA studios in on that metric. Because a AAA studio, they have a lot more work. They have teams in the dozens, if not hundreds, in terms of making these games. So a 3 to 5 development cycle for them is usually standard for a major title.
Well, no. It still applies to them. It just applies in a different way. Mm-hmm. See, the ones that go over 3 years for them still fail, but they don't fail commercially because they have so much power and audience and whatnot that they still succeed. But there is many games that are very much a absolute crap load, and almost every one of them took more than 3 years. Like some of the Star Fox games that completely fell on their face. They took more than 3 years.
Anthem.
Wasn't there that one really bad Doom game that took more than 3 years?
Doom 3, I think it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there is, if you think about the biggest controversy of, games that were supposed to be really amazing and from AAA, and then they completely fell on their face. If you look at every one of them, most of them have a greater than 3-year development cycle.
Yeah. But as you said, they're usually able to leverage that with having the money and clout to do a lot more in terms of PR and social media. As an independent developer, however, you can't announce to people that my amazing game will be out in 5 years from now. Everyone just wait around for that. Uh-oh. Did we lose Shark again? Oh, he's
no,
here.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
But yeah, the AAA have the power of having a amazingly large fan base that will pretty much keep them afloat no matter what they do to a certain point until they reach critical mass and they fail. Then we're seeing that with Bethesda now with Fallout 76. We're seeing that with Blizzard and whatnot. They're making these horrible products and everything, but they're still sitting there making profit off of them. They're profiting very much off of them.
And don't forget BioWare too.
Mm-hmm. And if they keep it up to a point where they reach critical mass, and I think Blizzard and Bethesda might be reaching critical mass here. If they keep it up to the point where they reach critical mass, I mean they're going to go under.
Yep.
In the case of Blizzard, if they go under, they would just they would still be. It would just not have any more Blizzard games, but Blizzard is part of Activision until Activision sinks itself.
Mm-hmm.
But Bethesda doesn't have that luxury of being attached to Activision or any other company, so that two companies have to sink themselves. Just one, just Bethesda has to sink themselves. For Blizzard to truly go away, both Blizzard and Activision have to sink themselves. But all Blizzard games can go away.
Yeah. And again, like when you're trying to figure this stuff out, you can't really put the independent developer on the same exact metric as a AAA. But as we've said, that doesn't mean you can ignore or scrimp on good presentation with your games. Understand, again, as you said earlier, UI design. And it ultimately, for this topic, it all comes back to you have to figure out what exactly are the value points for your game and maximize the hell out of that. Like going back,
minimizing the load.
Yeah, like as I said earlier, like if we're talking about a gritty, super challenging first-person shooter, people probably aren't going to care about having fully 3D rendered hats on your character. If we're talking about a game that is, very personal, that is about, fully creating characters in this world, then people are going to care about all those cosmetic options.
Mm-hmm. And every game has its own strengths and weaknesses, and where the value would be added in, because value for one game wouldn't necessarily transfer to value for another game, like you said earlier with the first-person shooter and the more customizable characters with the custom hats.
Yeah,
it's value for one, not value for the other.
Mm-hmm. And more importantly, if your game succeeds well enough on the stuff that gets you the most value, then you could experiment with adding in things that were kind of either too weird or maybe too much work to get put into the first iteration, that now that people are asking for it, you could try and experiment with. But again, you have to be really careful with that, because as we said, that allure of endless development is real, and it has sunk games and studios.
Oh, absolutely. Endless development, in my opinion, is absolutely a trap that will kill, and has killed many developers. And I don't think anybody should be doing endless development. If you want to go along that route, sequels is the answer, But that said, is don't do like one studio that I'm not going to name and release a game that feels like early access to then do a sequel to that game that feels like it's a little bit farther in early access to release another third game that now feels like it finally got out of early access.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good game. I really love it, but like we did a talk on the value in games, and that was the one that I really, really loved. But it was the oddball out because I felt like I got a very poor value out of it because I had to buy the game 3 times. Yeah. I had to buy it in early access the first time, buy it in early access the second time, and then buy it the actual full version in the third one.
Yeah.
And the thing is there was nothing different in between them. I mean, like, besides just adding more to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I still remember, my voice. Sorry about that. I still remember speaking with Chris Parr from Arkin about this and how he shifted his development focus. And for those of you who don't remember that talk, there was a point when Arkin Games was going under. Like, he's been very clear and transparent on this. There is one point where he was close to bankruptcy for his studio. And the problem that he had was he basically, for each one of his games, he went all in. Like, before there was even a fan base, before, he even did any marketing, he was already thinking about, I am going to put every idea I have into this game. And it's going to take, 3-4 years, whatever. And it's going to, of course, make a profit because I'm doing all this value to it. And that didn't work. So the problem, of course, was that he was focusing so much on the macro that the actual core gameplay and the smaller elements just weren't coming together. So he shifted it to say that now we're going to release a game that's going to be on the smaller side, but we are going to nail that core gameplay loop. We're going to get that perfect. If people like it and they buy it, I have an entire list of expansions and supplemental systems and stuff like that we could add as expansions. But it doesn't make sense to put that stuff into a game if nobody's going to buy it to begin with.
Exactly. And, to get people to buy it to begin with, you need not necessarily the core gameplay system. I mean, you need that to get them to enjoy the game after they buy it. But, as we said before, to get them to buy it, you need aesthetics, good screenshots, and a proper trailer. And then it's the gameplay that is going to keep them there.
Yep.
Kind of thing. The gameplay is not going to sell your game. And if you're depending on gameplay selling your game, then you pretty much already failed.
Unfortunately, it's not in a perfect world, it'll be the opposite.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be exactly the opposite. The gameplay is what would sell the game, and the art would just be secondary kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true, sadly.
Mm-hmm. But I think that is a good point to end this topic on, unless you have anything else you want to discuss.
I had a point, but I think I completely lost it.
Alright, in that case, let us see what weirdness is coming out this week, and then we'll get to my topic. So let me pull things up here really fast. There we go. Why does this always keep breaking? Shark Soul Image always seems to like break when we do this live, and I don't know why.
We'll have to figure that out when. It might be because it's a rectangular, different shape.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So let's see what the heck is coming out. Speaking about low quality games that doesn't look like there's a lot of value to them, let's see if we can find some winners this week. Let's see. What is this? Raid dial? Responsive Wait a minute. Responsive platform mechanics. Oh, maybe I should write a book about platformers.
Yeah, you should. We need to make sure the word gets out there about platformers.
Mm-hmm. What about Rouge Likes?
Yeah. And the Moulin Rouge likes.
This was made in 4 months at the end of our first year. Okay. Art isn't bad.
Character art seems to lack.
Yeah. Like this,
But
like
the
dragon
backgrounds
looks
seem to be
pretty
good.
cool.
The characters and backgrounds. I mean, the backgrounds seem good, but the characters seem
like very
not
basic.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I'm gonna take a shot at it. Maybe we'll enjoy a platformer.
It'll be your first platformer, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Power Struggle. Master Bladesmith. What?
Is that like a blacksmith one?
Oh, it's VR again. What? I'm still waiting for somebody to do like an elevated take on like Racketeer, Stardew Valley, the whole, management sim kind of design.
Yeah.
Knockout Daddy. I'm afraid. Oh, here's some really good art.
Oh.
You can hear the aneurysms coming from Shark right now.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, is this a game made by I don't know, 11-year-old?
I don't know. Did it take him 8 years?
Yeah.
This one looks pretty interesting.
Falling Islands? Terramancing.
Yeah.
Terramancer.
Play your friends. Use card comes to adapt your islands.
Definitely a safely extreme name.
Wait a minute. Why does this developer sound familiar? Oh wait, there was a game called Fractalis.
Probably. He probably started when he was 3 years old.
Not bad. I did like that game, Islanders. It was that one where you had to like put the buildings on the various islands to maximize. Very like Zen kind of game.
Yeah, I've seen gameplay of it. It didn't look like something I would be into for sure. But it didn't look bad.
Wait, this game contains fantasy violence easily distinguishable from real life.
Oh, good. I mean, we wouldn't want to, be confused with real life while playing the video games.
Let's see. Oh, here's one. The game we all have to play.
This
Oh,
might be a game for Josh then.
wait. A bullet hell without bullets. So it's just hell then.
I think it might be a controller hell. You get your new controller there, and you get like 500,000 of them thrown at you.
You love these graphics?
Oh yeah, those are super nice. I've never seen a higher res controller in my life.
Single player isometric. Wait, there's some word soup. Single player isometric puzzle platformer with levels inspired by surrealistic geometries, where you get to solve moderately difficult puzzles to progress towards the end. Okay then.
Oh, that was
That's a sentence there.
hold on, go back to that triangle looking one.
Okay then. Well, that's
That's physical impossibility.
Yeah, I'm still. We need to do a topic about city building. I have to find Chris Beatrice again because I would love to get him on for something for a discussion. Developer is Alwyn Joshi Joseph. Huh? Is that one name or three?
We're really adding to the list today.
Mm-hmm. Well, features nowhere to run, nowhere left to hide.
Oh, so what they're saying is they left out the escape button.
Mm-hmm.
How's it a feature to be missing a feature?
Wait, what?
Our feature is it lacks a feature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I need to start doing that. Like I need to, start listing all the features that I don't have in my games as well as the one I do. So I'll have a feature list that goes down like forever, all eternity.
Man. This one is either going to be good or this is going to be red flag central here.
Yeah.
Turn-based RPG, meticulous strategy, developed by the Soul Reaper, 3x3 battle squads.
Does it say if it was done in RPG Maker?
I was looking for that as we were looking at this.
I mean, they had the aesthetics, so they've definitely put work into it.
Turn-based
So,
combat.
I mean, it could be an RPG Maker game, but I wouldn't discredit it based on that if it is.
And they're drawing inspiration from Pokemon, Diablo, Final Fantasy, and Castlevania, the DS games.
I think this would be a good one to request a key for.
I was looking, yeah, I think so.
Because, I mean, it could be just meh, but it could be really, really good at the same time.
I mean, we were surprised by that Legend of Keepers prologue game.
Oh, yeah. That they updated that recently, and you need to play it again, actually. Because they've upgraded quite a bit to it.
I mean, talking about production values right here. Like one thing that I like as I'm watching this, it looks like he actually has like a walk cycle as he's moving. Because a lot of the low quality RPG Maker games, it's like just the characters still models moving like this. There's no animation there.
Yeah. And I mean, RPG Maker does have stuff for animation in there, but not a lot of people use it because it's harder stuff to do in it.
This is the game that I got the press key for that we played this late, 2-3 nights ago. I just don't know. There's a lot of stuff happening in this game, but I'm not sure if that stuff is actually helping the game or not.
Yeah. I don't remember you playing this one. I must have missed during that point. Oh, there's one for Draken right there.
Which one?
The Spermula. One.
What about... Oh, here's one. Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game 3.
Oh, it's the official video game. And it's the third one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Monster Energy. And
What?
it's motocross, man. It sounds like an all-winter kind of thing here.
Oh,
and the next thing you know, it's going to say KFC on there.
I remember this game. I played this on the Jump platform, Gunhouse. It was just okay. Playmobil the movie?
4 and asked what the desert of some name I can't pronounce is.
Now this looks like an RPG Maker game.
Yeah, this looks like very default RPG Maker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are RPG assets right there.
Character-driven story, progressively harder enemies.
Progressively harder enemies as a feature.
And leveling up.
Yeah, leveling up is a feature.
Apple Knight.
Why does the thumbnail say Apple Slash?
Yeah, I was wondering that. I don't know, like...
It looks like that could be interesting.
Like, again, like, it's very low quality graphics, but I like the animation, yeah.
They have style and animation.
Game lasts 30 to 60 minutes.
That's definitely a downside. But I would give it a try, see if you can get a key.
Yeah.
Is there a roguelite or anything? Because
well, it says it's an indie RPG. There's another aneurysm from Shark.
Well, the issue is that it's so short. It's less than 2 hours, which is... That's going to get Mojo, rather, an aneurysm.
Wait a minute. I just got a press key for the Cycle Season 1. And now they're on Season 2? Man, by the time I get to play that game, they'll be up to, like, Season 8. Okay. Slaughter 3. You are left soldier.
You are left soldier? Is that what it said?
You alone are left. There you go. That's better.
Oh, okay.
Looks generic third-person shooter.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stretchbot.
That sounds interesting.
Jump punch. I see over through this virtual platform or stretch. There's a classic platform.
I like the aesthetics.
Classic platform with tons of action.
Ooh.
This is
I'm liking this one.
This is the grammar cast, apparently.
No. No, when they put puns, they purposely did that. They purposely did that. Like this one looks good. You got to get the key for this one. This one.
Again, like we're seeing some really good background art.
Yeah, like all the art looks really good.
Alright, we'll see.
I mean, some of the titles look a little bit on the generic side, but just a few of them, and like all the others look like real good.
Let's see. What's this? Cruise Brawlers. What? I saw the moves. It's a fighting game. Fight on the streets. A mix of technical fight with fantasy.
But Ryu, that was a purposeful grammar mistake in the case of a pun.
Okay, what the heck is this? Wild time traveling... Wait, a wild time traveling clone dancing. Am I going to click on this one?
I know like an aneurysm waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, I know that guy, Constantinos. I think I have him followed on Twitter. Let's see. I'm afraid. Let's see.
Are we going to have an aneurysm together?
Oh God.
Oh yep. Aneurysm.
It's like that Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Yeah, it's more like YouTuber the game.
There is already a YouTuber the game.
No, I mean like the YouTuber that made his own game. The YouTuber the game kind of thing. Yeah, it absolutely does, Boring.
Tales of a single player.
A lot of YouTuber games.
That will be crit. Choose 3 heroes. Battle Tron.
Good aesthetically.
Not bad.
That's a card game, some kind.
Alright.
Give that one a try too. Like we're coming up with some good games. This
What's going on here? I'm scared.
Yeah, exactly.
Roguelite 2. They not only answered the question, they've already did it twice.
Yeah, what is a roguelike?
Turn-based RPG, common SNES series style graphics. Auto saving is a feature. That's good.
Yeah, this one looks very like RPG Maker graphics. Is this a roguelike made in RPG Maker?
It does look like it a little bit.
Oh, and it has the RPG mechanics like the RPG Maker. I bet you anything this is a roguelike that was made in RPG Maker. I bet you anything.
Let's see. Ooh, achievement clicker. Let's see.
That sounds like a good one.
And talking about advertising your game, the first thumbnail is literally just an empty hallway.
Well, I mean, that's one of their features is empty hallways.
Mm-hmm. 2-player co-op horror. Now that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. But is it interesting in actual reality?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing not from the GIFs and everything. Because I'm guessing it's a not scary horror game.
Swiper.
Maybe full of jump scares kind of thing, but that's about it. What it looks like anyway.
Oh, good. Finding Love.
Is this what's the thing? Tinder? Is this Tinder the game?
Maybe. So the children are right. Oh, yeah, this one I was looking at. I'm gonna put a key for this one. Again, like if you look at this screenshot right here, like that has some really good aesthetics.
Yeah. It is quite good, and the inventory UI looks a lot like Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
That one could be interesting. I mean, what is it with good games today? This is a weird game segment. The good game segment.
Oh, good. Another 550,000 word interactive modern fantasy novel.
There we go.
Play as your male, female, non-binary, gay, bi, straight, aromantic, or asexual character. Choose a side, if any, in this conflict. So, can you just choose nobody?
Probably. I mean, this seems like a game where all your choices don't matter. It's just pick a thing, and that's the thing, and you're good. You know, you're fully represented. If you want to be a attack helicopter, you can pick that, but it has absolutely no place in the gameplay.
Let's see. Wargroove's getting DLC. Brand new co-op campaign, new commander. I really want to like Wargroove, but just like that Fell Seal Arbiter game, it just did not fully click for me.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to love it, and it was one of my most disappointing of the year that we went whenever we went over our list, and the main reason why is it's a tactical RPG where you don't have any tactics. Because if there's a fog of war over the entire map and you can't plan a single move until they're like 2 blocks away, you're just reacting to it, you know, rather than actually being tactical, you know, and you have to play through the map like 20 times to finally fully reveal the screen and then memorize that, and then you can actually go through once and apply real tactics to the game and actually play one meaningful map of it. And ooh, it's a tactical game that you can't use tactics in. It's like a platformer without any platforms.
Or a platformer.
Yeah, it's like a first-person shooter with no guns or weapons. It's like it's like a I don't know, like a roguelike with no permanent upgrades.
Do you dare me to click on Men Busters?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm getting ready over here. What the? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, we're getting rid of that one really fast there. Scourgebringer. Neurovoider. Fast-paced, free-moving roguelite platformer.
Again, another visually pleasing game. I mean, has everybody been listening to this podcast about visually pleasing games? I mean, if so, you need to send us both a copy of these games. All of these games, we claim part of the copyright of your game because we gave you the advice to make visually pleasing games, so you can at least give us a key. Right?
Jonas Turner, I know him. So if it doesn't ever change. Not bad. Alright, we'll see.
Man. You know what? You know, I'm seeing something that's very painful to my eyes. All these good games are coming out in the next week, right? They're going to all be competing against each other, meaning that likely all of them but one will fail.
Yep.
Oh, that's painful because there's several that look so good this week, and it's looking like probably all of them but one will fail.
A Ninja Metroidvania.
But I could be wrong. But that's not a good sign.
Yeah, what's going on? Like this week coming up, we're getting a lot of really good-looking games. Yeah.
Means that we're probably going to be really dry next week.
Yeah. All hentai visual novel games next week.
Yeah.
Oh, that should bring Draken back too.
Yeah.
Let's see. And this
comes back from eating.
All right. One more page, and then we'll go to our final topic. What? Naked News? What the? I am not clicking on that one.
What, the Naked News?
No, this one right here.
That one. Master Shiz.
Let's see. What the heck? Oh, 2 unique side puzzles, 3 unique and varying story puzzles. Wait. Oh, player choice.
What can they choose?
I don't know.
Whether they want their avatar to be blue or red or yellow.
Eternal
Is that
Edge.
their choice?
Wait, is this the game somebody was telling me about?
We got one right there for Draken. Taming the Dragon. Did you see that one?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's not click on... Ooh, Crazy Simulator. That sounds good.
Crazy Simulator? What? That sounds like a Goat Simulator.
Wait. Raid Titans is a classic real-time strategy role-playing game. Those two words don't go together. Or those two genres.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. They're getting more explicit with the thumbnail arts, apparently.
Which one does for and which one reminds you of Monolith are?
I think it was that one that the platformer roguelite. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some photoshopping of that one game very quickly, just to keep any kind of demonetizations off this video.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, but I think with that, that's enough. We actually had some good games this week, but let's get to our final topic.
Several of them. Well, potentially several, because we won't actually know they're good until we actually experience them. But they definitely looked good.
Mm-hmm. Alright. So, for our final topic then, I want to talk a little bit about, and this one I think will be fairly quick because I think we've kind of discussed a lot of this already, but the bare essentials of what you need to be an indie developer, or just be a developer like in the market today. And this is something that I think even to this day, like even despite the fact that indie devs have been making games for the better part or being, propped up for over 10 years now, we're still seeing developers, I think, mess up on the basics. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like when we look at these games that tend to succeed, and I've said this before, a lot of people will only look at the game getting good reviews and nothing else. Stardew Valley won because it was a great game, or Darkest Dungeon was great because it was Lovecraft. So we'll just make a Lovecraft game, and our game will sell just like it. Or again, like the FTL example. But there's a lot that you need to think about right from the get-go if you want to start thinking about or building a studio. And I think this is the stuff that when we start talking about that difference between a hobbyist and a developer, this is where it comes into play.
Yeah, I think so too. Because you have to have the vision of what it takes to make a commercial game succeed
Mm-hmm.
in order to have a chance of succeeding in the commercial market.
Yep.
And one thing we've talked about many times over is aesthetics. Aesthetics is absolutely, a must-have. It ain't got to be, you know, 5 billion try, 3D models or anything like that. Aesthetics does not mean graphical horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
Aesthetics means visually appealing. Would you can have something that's 2D that does that?
And
You can have something 2D with only one color and do that, because there are some 2D games that like only use the color red or only use the color blue throughout the entire game,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using all different shades of it, and it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yep.
It's just purely 2D. It's not even, heavy on the animations or anything. Very light, and it's just uses one single color and all the shades of that one color, and it just looks like a beautiful art piece kind of thing.
Yep. And again, like we saw some really impressively looking 2D games in the last 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But we can even go back even further than that in terms of just organizing yourself as a studio. And like this is the one thing that I still see developers fail on. Not having an easy way to contact somebody or have people get in touch with you. And like this is something like for those of you watching this right now, you're probably thinking to yourself, that still doesn't happen today, but it still very much does. That there are developers that it's a pain to get in touch with them. And like think about that for us, and especially for you, Shar. Like, do you want people to have a hard time finding your game or finding you online?
Absolutely not. And I definitely do not do enough in that way to myself.
Yeah.
I don't make it necessarily super hard, but I also, I really lack a website, and I really need a website, but
Yep.
websites cost money.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my
Yeah.
friend has done some web design stuff for like some sites before he helped me design the Game Wisdom site. But it's still something that you need a landing page, not just for your game, but for you as well. Now, you can kind of
We need that sponsorship.
mm-hmm. But like you can kind of get by on the cheap with just having a Twitter handle or a Steam forum, and that's not the best, but it's better than nothing. But bare essential, like number one, you need an email address. And I know this sounds stupid, but I've seen developers do this, that there is literally no way to get in touch with them.
Yeah, I know that I personally have a separate email address for company replies.
Oh, yes.
I have, our Steam page for our last game, have, the Steam forum for our last game as well. Got my Twitter, that we were talking about earlier. I got my Discord, which is where most of my focus is, because I really want to bring people into my Discord and everything. Because I want to have a good, very meaningful relationship with the fans of our games. I don't, Twitter, you can't really say anything meaningful over Twitter. You got, 2 sentences that you can type, and then you're out of letters. Like, email, I mean, you can have something meaningful there, but, like, it's slow, time-consuming, and kind of a bit too much on the professional side for me to really be wanting in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, I need a website for sure. Yeah. I'm sure there's other things I need that I'm not thinking of right now. Fill me in, Josh. What else do I need?
Probably you're on your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Very inactive at the moment, but soon to get a video on there. I got to make one.
Quote unquote soon, right? Or coming soon.
It's not as hashtag soon as the background was. That one I was depending on somebody else, my artist, to get that one done. This one I'm just depending on myself. So I have been really busy though, so but I'm definitely, that's definitely one of the things on the high list is making a video for our YouTube channel. So hopefully in the next week we'll have one up.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, I harp on this so much, but it is something that people still fail to do. And I think there's that misconception that just having a store page for your game is enough. But that doesn't work. Like, I told you guys about trying to get in touch with the Mindustry developer. That when I type in Mindustry on Google, the first thing I get is the Steam store page. The second thing I get is the itch.io page. And I just get random, retweets of that. And there is no mention of a Twitter handle, no mention of an email address, not even on the person's itch.io page. And no, you can if they leave you an email address, but this person has nothing on their itch.io page. I even checked their profile, and there's no mention of it there as well. And this is just, again, like, how to shoot yourself in the foot before you even have a game going. Now, arguably, you don't want to, fully form an LLC before you have a game. That's putting the cart before the horse. But you need to be thinking about things from a business perspective as early as you can.
Oh yeah, and most people don't even need an LLC.
No.
I'm one of the few that do, but that's because of my other income outside of game development, the one that I live on while I'm still making games. And, most people don't even need an LLC. So, definitely, unless you have a specific need for one, do not ever go with the LLC. Sadly, I have that specific need. Mm-hmm. And, there's others that do too. And if you need it, absolutely go that route, but save that route until the very end, because once you form that LLC, you're going to be paying whatever your state charges, which my state seems to be one of the worst. And, I have to pay like a $500 a month or $500 a year. Plus I got to pay another $100 a year to the registered agent, which to my understanding, does nothing, besides have their name on it. It's like, why would I just attach my name to it?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to also pay taxes every year. And depending on what state and stuff you live in, my state has a bare minimum charge of $100. So that's another $100 a month I have to pay, or $100 a year I got to pay. And if you're losing, if you're not making any money, you still have to pay this like $800-900 or whatever every year. And if you're losing money, you still have to pay this $800-900 a year. So if you're going to set it up, do it at the very end. Oh, and by the way, I would also recommend doing it somewhere around February-ish, March-ish, whenever after tax season is. Because if you, I don't know what the date is, but if there's a certain renewal date, and I think it's something like February 30th, and if you start your LLC on let's just assume that the February 30th date is right, which is probably not, but let's just assume it is. If you start your LLC on February 29th, you're going to have to renew the very next day and pay like $900. So definitely find out what that date is, and definitely target a date after that. If you're going to release that year, it's going to be the same price whether you really do it in March 1st or June 1st or August 1st. So if you know you're going to be in that year, then just go ahead and do it right after that date, because you can get it out of the way and get the pain out of it, because it is a absolute pain. Yeah, the thing is you need to research all this yourself, but definitely find that date in your research and make sure that you're going after it, kind of thing, not before it. So you don't get double charged.
And some other things, as we've said, like once you start thinking about yourself as a business, you also need to be able to, I think, lock down your game ideas. As in being able to quickly figure out, what can I make, what can I start to develop, and whether or not this idea is good. And you need to do that as quickly as possible. Because one of the things that we see from a lot of in the hobbyist side is spending months or even years on prototyping without even having a solid game idea.
Yeah, you absolutely need a solid game design document before you go to form a company. You don't want to just jump into it. That said, you can just do it sort of like, I don't know, in the borderline between hobbyist and professional kind of thing. And when I say in the borderline, I mean you're trying to make something commercial, and you're going through prototypes. You're working out your issues as you go along, and then finally you find one that is commercially viable. That's going to be commercially viable, potentially, rather, and you're starting the company underneath that. But you've already got all your company logos. You've already got all this stuff worked out, kind of thing. You were just waiting for the right chance to hop off and go into full production. Launch your LLC or whatever you're going to do, kind of thing. Launch your marketing campaign, all this kind of thing. But the dangerous side of that is you've got to be careful, because you have to, while you're in that borderline, you do have to run a lot of things like the company. Like, you have to make sure that,
people are getting paid, the bills are getting met and stuff like that.
Yeah, and, contracts and stuff. You don't, and you also definitely want to make sure that you're not doing a rev share. Because rev share is anti-company, and rev share is very pro-failure kind of thing. Like
it's kind of like when I watch a lot of the shows that deal with like project management or like grand projects, it's an idea that every day that you're not working on something or being productive, you are losing money. And you have to be aware of that as a game developer. Because like we said in the first part, like if we're talking 3+ years of development on a single title, that is a huge sunk cost that it's going to be hard for you to recoup.
Yeah, and it's not just every day you miss is lost money. The issue is you could end up taking too long, and there is no money anymore.
Yep.
Like I've heard stories about people who were developing like a space game, and it was when space games were hot, and then they took them longer and longer and longer to make it, and by the time they released it, everybody was sick of space games, and they were like, "Oh, not another space games, I pass," and they just horribly failed. Because from what I hear, it was a pretty dang good game, but they utterly failed because they came out after space became basically a bad word in the game industry.
Yeah,
and because it took them too long, it took them too many days to get it out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, again, there's a lot that goes into kind of the success of a game long before you're even building that game. And you have to be aware of all these little things. Because as we've said, the games that do end up succeeding, the majority of people will never know why that succeeded. And some of the best games that we've played over the last 10 years, you can kind of chart everything that developer did right, and how all, like we said, it becomes like that perpetual motion machine that it just keeps building and building and building, and it has a very high chance of success. And again, we've said this many times before, you can do everything right and still fail, but the more things that you can mitigate and the earlier that you can do it, it does put the cards in your favor.
Right, risk mitigation, man. I was talking about this the other day about, basically, if you think about it, and this is not any kind of real world numbers or anything, but I'm just going to throw these numbers out there. If you have 10 chances to succeed, right, and you do all this risk management and everything, and risk mitigation rather, and you get it down to where there's 100 total draws, you have a 90% chance of failure kind of thing. But if you don't do all that risk mitigation and everything, you have 1,000 that you pull from, and you have 10 that you succeed from, and it's 99% chance of failure. And you're like, oh, it's just 9%. That's not really any big deal. But it's like you have to get lucky 90 times to succeed on that one, versus getting lucky 990 times. And when you look at it that way, it's like, yeah, that's a huge difference. That 9% isn't, a real aspect to where the actual odds are, because actually the odds will go up each time you got to get lucky. You can only get lucky so many times, and each time you get lucky, you're going to have less odds of getting lucky the next time.
And to Board's point there, that is another major thing. You need to be able to manage a project. Because, obviously, again, like, we're not saying you should be working on your game 24 hours a day for the next 2 to 3 years.
Although some consumers are.
Yeah, of course. But you need to be able to sit down and say to yourself, okay, if I'm working, let's say, 8 to 4 on Saturday, what do I want to do during that time? What is my plan? And then let's say the next time I work would be Tuesday from 4 to 8. And it's about being able to sit down and come up with an idea of how much can I feasibly do with this work on a week-by-week basis, and what are my goals? Because again, like, this is hard. And the reason, it's something that I've ran into myself, is that it's different sitting here and just thinking to yourself, oh, I'm just going to spend the next, 2 months, I'll work on this at 5 hours every day. It will be easy. Versus when you're actually putting it in practice.
Yeah. And for some people, having a specific schedule is better for them. Actually, I would say that's the vast majority of people have that. You're going to work from this time to this time, and all that time is going to be, focused on the game. And a lot of people who, do not succeed in completing a game don't have any kind of schedule. They have, I'll work on the game whenever I'm going to work on the game kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that is personally what I do, but, it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for most people. Yeah. I am just one of the rare exceptions, and it's mainly because I am so absolutely adamant and, desperate to make a game that succeeds, that, it is literally the, it's not actually a true thing, but it is literally the kind of saying about the blood in the water kind of thing and the shark going after it. Although that's not factually true, that saying is exactly what it kind of plays out to me, is there's blood in the water and I'm going after it. I don't need a schedule. There's blood in the water and I'm going after it.
Yep.
Simple as that. I have the drive and everything to push through it, and I can work, whenever, and and that flexibility really allows me to do it. Now, when I personally have a schedule or a set time that I got to do things, like I'll sit down and like my creative juices will not be flowing. It's like, what do I do, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But other people can. I just can't turn myself on and off like that, and that's the reason why the free schedule worked, and the fact of my determination worked for me in that free schedule. But most people are not like that, so don't follow me unless you're basically like that. That set schedule is better for most people. But if you are like that, go free schedule kind of thing. If you
But again, it's always about, and I think like this will be my final point, and we'll begin to wrap things up. Let's see. Yeah, we're about an hour and 50 in. Like, ultimately, you need to be able to sit down and have a hard conversation with yourself about what you want to do and what you're able to do. And you don't want to be finding this stuff out, 4 years after you've already you designed your company, you have the logo up and all that. And the more that you can kind of figure out or demystify for yourself early on is going to do a world of good for you. Because it's important to be able to lock things down. Whether it's large things like what my gameplay loop is going to be or what my aesthetics are, or even small things like, what's going to be my email address? How are people going to reach me? What social media platforms am I going to use? And so on. Yeah.
And building on your point, like this goes into actually, the game design document and everything. And when you figure out your features and everything that you're going to want to put in there, you're going to need to know that you can do those things, or that you can hire somebody to do them, or that you have the time and ability to learn those things and put them in. And they don't need to be too much of a stretch off your core talents. I mean, if it's something that, it's say you're a programmer. I have no idea how to do a feature like that, but I can learn. You better at least have some kind of idea of what you're learn before you get into it.
Yeah, here's a pro tip. If you're going to build, let's say, a real-time strategy game, you may want to have a background in designing a real-time strategy system before you bang your entire company and livelihood on it.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that you can reasonably figure out, or I say you would need to know how to do most of the things you want to put in your game before you do your game. I mean, you can leave like maybe a small percentage of it. I don't know that, but I know what I need to learn to learn that. Kind of thing. But keep that as a small percentage, and definitely anything that you don't know, even what you need to learn to figure that out, that does not belong in your game design document. Get rid of it. And if that was a core part of your game, looks like you need to go with a different game.
Mm-hmm. And like we said, like, the problem we have this discussion is that there will always be exceptions to this rule. There will always be developers who will succeed despite having no, social media reach, no connections out there. They figure it out all on their own, and people will assume that's, the magic template that's going to get them to succeed. Again, like, we've brought up Dwarf Fortress again as one of those examples. There are people who think that the Dwarf Fortress model is the perfect way to run a game design company. It is not. It is 100% not how you want to be business making a game. As a hobbyist, yes. But a lot of people fail to see that distinction.
Yeah. I mean, you have one thing you have slightly wrong on that is like the perfect model. The perfect model is just going in there wild, getting struck by lightning 3 times in a row, then winning the lottery, and then getting struck 3 more times in a row, and then winning the lottery with the first lottery ticket you bought after that, and then get struck by lightning 2 times, fall off a dam, live to tell about it, get eaten by a shark, and then come out the other side perfectly fine, and be that lucky. And that is the ideal formula for being lucky, and not trying anything and just succeeding. But if you don't have that kind of luck,
and don't forget,
you're in the wrong model.
Don't forget, you need PewDiePie to cover your game too in there.
Well, I mean, that's a whole shark eating you and spitting you out, kind of thing.
And again, like, this is one of those things that is very hard, I think, to explain to people. And when we do the cast with Tomo on Wednesday, like, when we talk about analyzing game design, that's another very big thing that a lot of people don't think about video games this seriously. And, like, this is how you ruin friendships with people. It's ruined friendships that I've had. When people just sit around and go, hey, it would be cool to just make some video game up. Yeah, let's do it. And, like, nobody has any idea beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, planning is an absolutely key thing. I mean, that's what your game design document is there for. You want to plan everything out. And you don't want just a game design document for your game. You want basically a game design document for your company, which is I forget the official term for that. Do you know what it is?
Not project management, project scope. I can see it in my head, but I can't remember the term that they use.
Yeah. We'll just call it the game design document because we can't think of the name of it. But there is an official term. But you want one for your company that plans out stuff like your
business plan. Is it a business plan?
Yeah, business plan. There we go. It's a business plan. You want a business plan, which is a game design document of businesses.
It's that old man memory, and it'll be horrible when we play platformers tonight too. and
well, you still got to try your first platformer.
I want. And who's going to send me the first Rouge Like?
Yeah, or the Moulin Rouge Like.
I should just purposely spell the genre wrong in every one of my books and see if anybody notices.
And to Tim's point is, he said that the game design document should not plan it all out. Yes and no. I mean, it should have a rough idea of everything that's planned out. And to Ryu's point is the Safeway Extreme point is now at 2. Right after I say that your game design document should be Safeway Extreme. But what we mean by Safeway Extreme, when that's kind of the meme that goes around here, is that it needs to both be very, very firm and all over the place, but soft at the same time so that it can absorb feedback and everything. It needs to be like a spider web, basically.
Oh, good.
Where it's hard and you can actually catch stuff with it, but it has enough flexibility that you can move things out of the way and adapt to feedback.
And I think with that very specific description, I think that may be a good point to end things on. But yeah, it is a very, again, like, there's so much that a lot of people don't grasp when it comes to running a studio and taking that step from hobbyist to developer. And when you're trying to look at success of other studios, it's almost impossible, I think, for somebody from the outside to look in and say, okay, FTL succeeded because of this, or Darkest Dungeon worked well because of that. And I've said this before, that you can't really examine a game after it succeeds. And it's that great catch-22 that the games that succeed, you won't know that they succeed until they've done it, and then you'll never be able to understand why they succeeded in the first place.
Yeah, but you can definitely shape your game towards success by risk management, and you mitigate the risk. You know, you're not going to be able to mitigate all the risk. There's nobody that can mitigate all the risk, but you can definitely mitigate a lot of the risk, and get yourself set up for success. I mean, started my Twitter campaign recently, and that's part of my mitigation, my risk mitigation, because getting people to learn about the game on Twitter and whatnot, gets, more word of mouth out there, and it gets people to actually know the game exists. And knowing the game exists is one of the main things you want to risk avert, because if you release a game and nobody knows about it, guess what? Nobody's buying it because nobody knows about it. I mean, do you know about this one purple and blue camouflage tree that exists out in the forest?
Yeah.
No, nobody does. So nobody's going to go chop it down and sell that wood for $10 billion.
I like
But
Foreign's...
it might exist out there. It's might exist.
I like Foreign's comment. A developer is just a successful hobbyist. I think that may actually be true for a lot of the indie developers, because we've seen again that there are exceptions to these rules that we've said. There are developers who, despite any kind of social media outreach and in spite of easy ways to contact them, their games do relatively well. And this is my final point, because we'll be ranting here for another hour if we don't stop it here. But when we say well or do well, that is different for every company out there. For some developers, having 20 copies of your game being sold is a massive financial success. For some developers, as we saw with like EA and some of the major studios, you need at least 5 million copies of your game to consider an outstanding success.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole, load versus value kind of conversation. The higher load you have, the more it's going to cost to make. And the more it costs to make, the more copies you have to sell to break even. I mean, we sold a pitiful 127 copies of our last game, and that failed horribly. I mean, we would have needed, I was projecting that we were going to sell about... based off of our wish list, is that we were going to sell roughly, I think I calculated up roughly 30,000 or so. And I was like, okay, that'll be enough to do a little bit more than break even, with our labor and everything included. And we did not hit that 30,000. We hit, 127, I think it was. And it was like, ugh.
All right. And again, there are hobbyists out there who will gladly, spend as much time as they want on a game, and even if it just sells a few copies, they'll consider it a success. I still remember if Ken was on, he would agree with me. We were at a Philly group of an IGA meeting where someone was like, I don't care if my game makes any money. I don't care if people pirate. As long as people are willing to pay or play it, I would be happy with that. And we both just sat there looking at each other going, this is not a good place for either of us. We would probably just piss off everybody there if we said our thoughts.
Yeah.
Alright, but I think with that, we're going to wrap things. I think this was a really good cast. We got some really, I think, standout topics, and we got a lot of work for a future cast, too.
Yep, we added like 5-6 topics.
And Shark was last week saying we were running out, and see,
yeah, we were.
And now we're back up there.
Yeah,
but
we got our groove back.
But thank you everybody for watching this live or recorded. If you would like to get our videos and discussions a little bit earlier, be sure to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/GWBicer. And for our live or podcast interviews, VIP subscribers get those earlier and ad-free. As always, besides the Game Wisdom channel, be sure to check out our Discord, link down below. You can follow me on Twitter at GWBicer, and we are always looking for guests to have on for our design talks, as well as games to spotlight. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. And for you, Shark, where can people find you?
Well, in the recorded version of this cast, there will be a link to my Discord down below. If you happen to be in the live version and in the Game Wisdom Discord, you can find me in there. Just send me a DM, and I'll get you a link to my Discord that way as well. You can also find me on Twitter, which is Nexus Games INC1, which we are posting, again, beautiful, amazing stuff on there right now that is very, very exciting for me and very, very beautiful. Can we show something off on here for that?
Do you have a website that I can link to?
No, but I have a image that I can to you on Discord.
I think I can do that really fast. Let's see. Alright. Let me down with some more on-air live technical stuff.
Alright, there's the image.
Alright.
And really excited, getting really good.
Yo.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. The game doesn't have an official name yet, but it's going by Project Tribe, which is just our project name. And I just really, really excited about it. And we're posting all kinds of things on that on our Twitter. Of course, if you're in the live show and whatnot, you want to see the Twitter, and you're on the Game Wisdom Discord, you can also PM me and get my or DM me, whatever you want to call it, and get my Twitter link. Make it easy for you.
Shark, can you type in your Twitter handle into the chat really fast?
Yeah.
Alright, but while he is doing that, as always, we'll be back next Sunday around probably like 3:34 p.m. for our live show. And come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. That is going to do it for this week. And have a great night. Until next time, take care.
See ya.